All right, ladies and gentlemen, Wuthering Waves in the past 12 hours has come out with some pretty crazy news, and I think we're all familiar with it. And about 1.7 million other people in the gacha gaming space, or maybe just Twitter as a whole, are familiar with it as well. It's going to be the drip marketing and the reveal for Cartethyia. And boy, oh boy, is there a lot to be excited about. And so I'm just going to be over here to break down everything that we're seeing over here and speculate a bit based around what we're probably going to see her do in-game. Because boy, oh boy, Kuro's laid out a lot of clues with both her weekly boss, Sonata sets, all of that good stuff, and of course, a big old question mark on a lot of the stat pages that are currently in the game. But before we get into that, let's just go ahead and check out this drip. So over here, we're gonna have, of course, Cartethyia, Imperator, as well as Fleur-de-Lis, her big form. And we can clearly see over here, she's going to be a 5-star unit. If anyone thought she was going to be a 4-star, you're probably on crack. And she's got both of her forms, right? The smaller version, the younger version, and then the one that's been aged up, I think, you know, due to being locked away in the tower at Avenolium and also having all of that big Threnodian influence exerted over her. And so before we even dive into the specifics of what we're seeing over here, I actually wanted to bring up drip marketing for another character. We got somebody else who plays a really similar role to Cartethyia. And that is, of course, Jinsei. And this is what Jinsei's splash art actually looks like. And you can clearly see over there, she's got the whole of Jue, the Sentinel of Jinzhou, actually in her background and kind of guiding her along that splash. And so based off of what we're seeing for Cartethyia, yeah, it's pretty clear she is the Sentinel's Resonator at this point. And from what we're supposed to see, Jinsei's a very, very strong character. She was, one of the highest DPS numbers as one of the biggest nukes in the game. And so we might be seeing a very similar sort of thing for Cartethyia over here. If Kuro does follow a trend, and, based off the fact that her boss fight is very aggressive, we can imagine that Cartethyia is probably going to be a DPS, much like how Jinsei was a DPS. So that's just the very first clue we have. Obviously, there's no set pattern. We're gonna have a new Sentinel for every single region that we go through, and hopefully, it all pans out. Because when it comes to the arrow erosion team that we have in the game currently, we have the support, we have the sub DPS, but we don't have the DPS for that yet. And all are imagining that she's going to fill in that role. So that's just a little bit of the clues that we have over here from her splash. Now, let's go ahead and take a bit of a deeper look into what we're seeing over here on the side. Let me just move my chat a little bit first. Post, Lament, Anthropa, whatever. The truth is a beacon in the maelstrom of my life. And as we're all aware, she has had one of the most troubled childhoods, teenage years, adult lives we've ever seen. Kind of being split into two different forms, in eternal battle with the Threnodian and then ending up, getting saved by Rover. Or really, beating the Threnodian and then fighting with Rover. To fully release its influence, having all of that crazy stuff go down in patch 2.2. We've seen it was a bit of a disaster. Now we got the archive. The powers of the Sentinel and Threnodian clash and unite within her. Thanks, Cantarella, propelling her into an uncertain future. Whether the future is bright or dim, she will hold the blade firmly and confront all that comes her way. So yeah, she's ready to go. She's ready to fight. She is going to be launching in version 2.4 of the game. And from what I'm seeing in here, it doesn't look like the Threnodian's powers or the Threnodian's influence is fully even gone at all. And from what we saw in the 2.2 story quest, the smaller version of Cartethyia is the one that kind of really embodies the Sentinel, while the bigger one is actually the one that embodies the Threnodian. And so we might see, based off of this, right, clearly two different movesets. One that's maybe a bit more focused around light and calming or, not as malevolent. And then this form over here where she's the big mommy. She's probably going to be a bit more violent, a bit more malicious, that sort of stuff. I'm really hoping for a bit of a dual personality sort of vibe when it comes to this unit. There's Leviathan below as well. Yeah. We see a little bit of that as well. Right, the more sea-oriented stuff, while the horse, the Pegasus, is more like Imperator. So yeah, I'm really hoping we get a bit of a dual moveset, maybe one that's using more Dark Tide focused attacks that are, obviously darker, while she's a bit more focused on the light. Because we all know Phoebe's Sentinel, protect me! And then she has all the glowing light and stuff, while over here, a bit more evil. So that could be a very, very fun split to see. I think she might be one of the only, like, dual form units in the game where the model, like, completely changes. Sure, you could say, like, Calcaro is one when he enters his liberation, but that doesn't really count because he just does the same exact shit. You could say Camellia sort of is one when she goes from, like, Blossom mode to, white-haired mode versus red-haired mode. But I think this is the first one that we're going to have where the model and the moveset change dramatically at the same time. I'm just hoping that they don't do the same exact thing in combat, and I think there's a lot to be excited about because in a lot of ways, right, you might be getting 2 characters for the price of just 1, depending on how uniquely they play. I'd love to see if there's a team comp focused around maybe like her Sentinel form, and then maybe there's a different team comp focused around her Thernodian form. That could be some of the coolest shit in the game. Maybe she's like a support, like a sub DPS or a support when she's in the Sentinel form. And then when she's in the Thernodian form, that's just like mainly a DPS one. So there's a lot of room for experimentation in this kit. Maybe Phoebe-like, but I'm hoping for an entirely different moveset between the two, right? Because Phoebe, like you guys are saying, does alternate between like sub DPS and main DPS, but her moveset doesn't change. She just has the same exact moveset, and then stuff just does different things. And so it's not nearly as exciting as a character that has completely different movesets in each form and then serves different roles on the team doing that. So that's enough initial speculation on what she does. I am 99% sure that there aren't even any leaks of this character even available. So yeah, this is just purely entirely what I hope to see in the game. Now let's go ahead and get into post-Lament, whatever. She manipulates the ocean, Hydro, that consumes all, and the storm, Arrow, that shapes the world. The powerful gale, yeah, she's Arrow, will rise as she commands the vortexes and the tides, wiping out every opponent in its path. Some of this even leads me to assume that she might be an Arrow and a Havoc unit, because we all know, right? There's a lot of references to like vortexes, water, ocean, all over here. And guess who is ocean-oriented but is also Havoc? I don't know, right? That could be cool, but it's clear based off the Fleur-de-Lis boss fight that we actually have, both the hologram and the weekly boss. She's in her Darktide form, but still does arrow damage, so I don't think this is really going to cut it. So let's just go ahead. We've read the little excerpt. Now let's get into what we got going on over here. I see a frame from the 2.2 story quest. Is this the first one with music? There's been music in other ones, but this is the first one with, like, vocal tracks. Oh, man. I don't even know if that's music from the 2.2 quest. That might have played at the end when you, like, stab Fleur-de-Lis and then, like, catch Cartethia's body and then just go, like, flying over to, like, the shore all the way down. Is it from that? Okay. Yeah, I mean, shit, let's play that again. No wonder they're playing parts from the story quest then. Oh, yep. So we got Leviathan over here when this dark form is showing. Let's see if we can see the Sentinel. And we got the Sentinel over here when the Cartethyia form is showing. That is nice. That's pretty good. I like that. I like that juxtaposition between the two. You got Cartethyia with the whale, or the whale Leviathan, or Fleur-de-Lis. And then when you get to seeing Imperator, that's when Cartethyia shards show up. Starts with her, and then her. Okay, all right. Yeah. So, last thing that I want to focus on when it comes to all this drip marketing is, of course, the fact, ladies and gentlemen, you can see the exact sword that they're holding. And guess what? It's the same photo.
I will be there for everyone as we head toward our shared future.
It's the same photo, ladies and gentlemen. And so, I do believe at this point, it's become crystal clear. Cartethyia and Fleur-de-Lis will be an arrow erosion unit. And the reason why I'm saying that, guys, is because why do you think there's a question mark here? Why do you think that the resonator equipping this Echo, can gain a 20% arrow damage bonus unless it's Cartethyia? It's literally her weapon. You get it from fighting her in the weekly boss. If people are still saying it's going to be Kachona, guys, Kachona's already in the game in Crossing Stars. There will be a unit release called ? All right, I'm done entertaining you guys. All right, so It's pretty clear by now that Gus of Vulcan and Reminisce Fleur-de-Lis will be the 4-cost Echo and the Sonata set that's going to be used for Cartethyia. And what this almost leads me to assume is that maybe Cartethyia might be one of the first units that doesn't really care about damage types at all. As we're familiar, right, a lot of other Echoes in the game, specifically the 4-costs or what you're supposed to put in the active slot, right, they'll come with like an attribute damage bonus like this monkey over here, and then a different attack type damage bonus. And so with Cartethia's 4-cost just being a straight boost of 20% to arrow, I'm wondering, wow, is she genuinely just gonna be like damaging in every single type, and so there's not really one to focus on? That could be a little bit interesting. And so as we dive deeper into this set, I wanted to talk about Gus of Vulcan in particular, and then talk about what Sonata sets as a whole you might want to farm for, and who you're probably going to want to slot it on across what I'm imagining is Cartethia's best in slot team. The best in slot team that I'm thinking for Cartethyia is of course going to be Arrow Rover, based off the fact that Arrow Rover greatly enables erosion and doubles the stacks that Arrow Erosion can apply. I'm going to move our chat back over here so we can look at the skills. Arrow Rover doubles the number of stacks that Arrow Erosion can apply, going from 3 to 6, which I assume is going to be pretty important in the team, because we've got somebody else who enables Arrow Erosion too, and that's going to be Kachona, because she will go ahead and amplify Arrow Erosion damage by 100%, and she has a shit ton of application on her own. She's got it on like her intro, she's got it on her forte, she's got it on her basic attack, she's also got it on her resonance skill, and of course on her liberation where she sings that song and then stacks it up to apparently 20 times in her kit. So there's a lot of application on this unit. You got the Arrow Rover buffer that doubles the number of stacks. You got her amplifying the stacks, and I do think Cartethyia is going to come in and probably gain some benefit out of actually using those stacks.
As we head toward our shared future.
Now that we've talked about all the different roles,
behind.
It's pretty clear that Arrow Rover is going to be the healer based off the healing that's in her kit. You'd probably want to put Rejuvenating Glow, maybe with the Fallacy of No Return on Arrow Rover. And then when it comes to Kachona, I'm pretty sure you want to put something like Moonlit Clouds, because A, Moonlit Clouds is going to give that attack buff. Hopefully Cartethyia scales off attack. Maybe she doesn't. Maybe Moonlit Clouds is not the best option, but that's just what I'm thinking right now. And then when you have Arrow Rover on Rejuvenating Glow, you're going to have that 15% attack buff as well. Great buffs overall. And then finally, when you get to Gus of Vulcan, you might be thinking, oh, Gus of Vulcan gives a 10% arrow damage, and then when you have Arrow Erosion Infliction, or they receive it, look how she buffs every single resonator on the team, but then only triggers a 50% for herself. Isn't this a bit more of like a supportive set? Isn't this a bit more like a sub DPS set? Wouldn't you want this on Kachona and then something different on Fleur-de-Lis? And the answer is maybe, right? You have to consider whether or not losing this 4-slot Echo bonus to 20% arrow damage is actually worth it to put Cartethyia on something like maybe Sierra Gale. Because the fact of the matter is that if you do put Cartethyia on something like Sierra Gale, she'll get up to 40% arrow damage, right? And then she could get 15% arrow damage from Gus of Vulcan on your Kachona. That would be a total of around 55% arrow damage bonus. Then you got the 12% from the Echo in the main slot, right? But when you go ahead and you go to Gus of Vulcan itself, Gus of Vulcan alone gives you a 40% arrow damage bonus, which is roughly the exact same as Sierra Gale. And so the end result is, guys, well, you actually have a couple of options, in my opinion, for how you're going to want to build this unit. If you have a really, really good Sierra Gale set that you already have on like a Gion or something, maybe you could just go ahead and use it. Yeah, it would be 55% with Sierra Gale. But what you would be missing is, and this is a really, really important one, guys, you'll be missing the impact of the Impermanence Heron, which already gives you a 12% damage bonus, right? The Impermanence Heron gives a 12% damage bonus if you are using it on Kachona, and then it has that 22.5% attack buff. And so if you are using Kachona, then you'll be sacrificing your personal damage to go onto Moonlit Clouds, but you'll give Cartethyia better buffs. That's what my opinion is. So we'll just have to see what the damage numbers are between the two units. If Kachona's damage is like really, really, really high and like really, really, really good, maybe Gus of Vulcan on her and then Sierra Gale on Cartethyia is the best way to go. But again, this is all just speculation, all just stuff to think about while you're farming. I still think at the end of the day, the optimal slot is going to be Gus of Vulcan on Fleur-de-Lis, because you're still getting that 40%, and then you're getting 60% additional over here, and then you go Moonlit Clouds on Kachona to just buff this unit even more. The last piece of the puzzle, I think, when it comes to this Arrow Erosion team and this whole composition is Rover's 5-star unique weapon that only Arrow Rover really gains a lot of benefit from. I'm gonna be real here. This thing right now currently sucks ass. It is kind of fucking awful. And the reason why I want to say that it sucks ass and it really isn't that good is for one simple reason. We only have R1 of the weapon right now. And this is the truth of the matter. Arrow Rover's weapon scales so well with dupes that not having them makes the weapon feel almost unfucking usable. The reason why is that this weapon, when you use Rover's enhanced resonance skill, it will amplify arrow damage by a huge amount. At R5, it goes to 26% amp at R5, but it's only 10% at R1. 26% amp, assuming it is R5, is better than the outro buffs of characters like Verena or Shorekeeper, who only give 15%. And because it specializes in arrow damage, naturally it's going to be a little bit higher to reduce the flexibility, but right now, it's just straight up worse. It's just straight up worse than both of those other supports. And so the end result is that this thing just feels really, really, really dinky. And I'm hoping that we get at least maybe 2 or 3 copies soon so that it could be at maybe like 18% and at, you know, and at a baseline just be better than Verena's amp or Shorekeeper's amp. Because right now, oh man, it feels a little bit rough using this thing. I kind of regret even leveling it up in the first place and using materials on it because I have not used it a single time. I thought about using this in like a Gion team. Absolutely useless. You just do less damage. You just do less damage than using a support like Verena or Shorekeeper. And it's a little bit rough. So that's kind of like the last piece of the puzzle over here for that Arrow Erosion team. We want it, and we want more copies of it very, very, very soon. And so, yeah, that's going to be my point of view on Cartethyia, my point of view on her drip, her potential role on teams. If you still think that she's not going to be Arrow Erosion, I think that you're probably, I'm going to be real here, you're just intentionally being obtuse at this point. Why do you think her sword is on the Arrow Erosion set? And wouldn't it make a lot of sense for her to use her sword as a main slot echo? It's probably going to be in like an essential part of her kit, and you're going to feel like there's something missing if it's not there. So yeah, that's going to be our overview. That's going to be our walkthrough of this drip. Let me know what you all think. And once again, at the time of recording, I've had many, many people confirm in the chat that there are no leaks of Cartethyia available anywhere. So once again, this is just entirely 1,000,000% my speculation based off my understanding of the game and all the teasers that Kuro's given us. Let me know what you all think. Peace.